Good morning, everybody. I understand that we're all doing very well. I am also, thank you very much. Before I start, a short introduction. My name is Matyas Meichl, and the past year I've been doing something really exciting and really interesting. Well, exciting and interesting for me because I am a nerd. Not so exciting and not so interesting for anybody else, really. But that was working for the fifth largest publishing company in Europe called Sonoma, and we've been pushing digital publications like crazy all over the place, mainly aiming towards the iPad. So who amongst you is familiar with the concept of digital publishing, and who among you are using InDesign, and are you using it to create digital content? Is this yes to all the questions? Is that hands up? Okay, good. That's pretty much us. That's good. So I think that if that's the case, the first part of this presentation, which is more practical, I am a very practical person, is not going to be that new to most of you or some of you. But that is creating the page layout and placing multiple objects and shapes and wraps and compositing layered files. Has any of you ever tried layer options in InDesign for layered files? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah. And then the second part is really the digital publishing part, which is the digital publishing suite in general, how we add interactivity and how we test the content, how we deliver the content. And I added something really exciting at the end, and that is exporting HTML directly from InDesign. So who has ever dreamt of creating HTML files directly from InDesign? Is that just two of you? Well, those dreams will come through for the two of you. Thank you very much. And let's start. And I'm going to take a seat, so I also going to be getting fairly comfortable here. And this is pretty much the file that I had in mind of exporting and playing around with, which is a very simple design. And then there is another thing, which is an advertisement, and that's right here. So this one is already, I would say, a digital publication in itself. As this one, if I open the Folio builder, you will see that this is actually added as a folio. Is this panel, the Folio builder, familiar, somewhat familiar to any of you? I see this and that. Okay. So I'm going to show you what I've made, and then I'm going to walk you through the steps that I took to have this done. And what I made, I can actually preview this on the desktop. If I had an iPad attached that was running Content Viewer, then I would be able to view this, to preview this on my iPad as well. And as you can see, this is an advertisement for downloading a free magazine. And to get the voucher code for that magazine, you have to pull this out. And here's also a video placed from YouTube that you can play, and you can put it on full screen, etc. I think that this is a nice example of interactivity made with InDesign. Wouldn't you agree? This is great. Okay, so let's see what happened at this point. I'm going to start creating a new document, and that document I'm going to do for a digital publishing intent. And I'm going to use the also popular page size of 1024 × 768, which is the standard iPad resolution. You can already see that this is landscape, and of course I need to create a portrait orientation in case someone rotates the device, which happens every now and then. Any of you own an iPad? All of you too? Very good. And we start with an empty page with a text frame. It is a master text frame. This is also a new concept introduced with CS6, that all of these pages will have a master text frame. Well, you can, when you're creating the new document, you can uncheck this so you don't have the master text frame included. I always forget to uncheck that checkbox because it's checked by default. So the first thing, pretty much the first thing I do is that I get rid of that. Again, it depends on you. If you like to have this master text frame included in your design, then just leave it in, and you can start flowing the text in to this text frame. So let's place, and I cheated a little, just a little, because I have this Photoshop file ready, and this is all the design and all the assets, right, for landscape orientation. And you can see that this PSD file includes all the layers for this design. So the first thing I'm going to do is, of course, I'm going to place this. Anybody know the command for placing? Yes?
Yeah, I always forget that too.
Ah, that's not true. It's basically burnt in my muscle memory, so Command and D is like the first thing I do. And I have this TSNL add. And what I will do is I will check this Show Import Options checkbox over here. And when I do that, I open this and I will see all the different layers that are included. So for now, I only need the background. I only need this background PNG, and again, I could show you Photoshop and the generate feature that Photoshop has. Have you ever used the generate feature? Any of you? I see one and a lot of no's. Okay, so we'll go just for a few short seconds. I'm going to show you the generate feature, but for now, I'm only going to use the background. And I say okay, and I just place this. Like that. Hip hip hooray. So I got my background. And I'm going to place this document again. I still have the Show Import Options checkbox selected. And with that, I open. But this time, I don't need the background. Eventually, I don't need the first 6 covers either. And I don't need that, which is the video button. And I don't need the draw out. So all I need is this iPad. And as you can see, I'm bringing in these layers with transparency. And yeah, you got the general idea, right? This is fairly convenient to work with layered PSD files, and the great news is that this also works with layered Illustrator files. So if you have composited something in Illustrator or in Photoshop for that matter, then you can actually use these layers to recomposite this in InDesign. Now, this really doesn't come so exciting when it's about this part, when it's about the fixed layout of 1024 times 768. But you probably want to create an alternate layout from this, which will be the portrait, the 768 times 1024 version of the same page. Now, I could fiddle a lot with the PSD file itself and the object positions and automate this. But in my experience, the more you automate, the more you lose of your own creative freedom. So this is kind of what you have to put on a scale and say, yeah, I want to be really time efficient, and I don't care what the machine will drop me out of at the end of the pipe. Or you can go and say, I want to be really caring and loving towards my content, and I want to reform this. So this time, when I'm creating the alternate layout, you will see that, yeah, my positioning is a little off. So I will have to fix that. But luckily, I can, well, simply changing the size of these frames where these images are in would be enough. And also, since I placed the same file with layers, You might think that, oh, I can do that only once and now I have to re-import everything. Well, that's not entirely true, because if you place the file like this, that has layers, then you can right-click and you can say Object Layer Options. And in the Object Layer Options again, you can go through all the layers that you want to include in this design. So for me, for now, I'm going to take this, and you can see that this text is really long and hanging out from this, so that's going to be a bit difficult. So I'm going to right-click again, and I'm going to say Object Layer Options, and inside the add, I have this header. So I say OK, and now I have my iPad, like that. And I can move it, position it wherever I like. And of course now I want to include the covers. And for including the covers I'm going to use the same file. So for now, let's just place it again, or I could duplicate it here. So if I take it and create a duplicate, like that, and just right-clicking, Object Layer Options, and I have the covers right there. And from the covers I have, now it's the Donald Duck that I have selected. But you can see that the layer visibility, the layer transparency, better said, is maintained. So I can take this cover, I can move it around, and I can fit frame. Yep. And of course I can resize it and position it. So that's pretty good. But what I want is I want to have these covers changing inside this frame. So that will need I'm asking those who are already familiar with the DPS tools. Yep, an MSO, and that stands for? Multi-state. It stands for a multi-state object. Hands up those of you who made a multi-state object before. I see 2 hands in the air. Okay, so then this is going to be new information for all of you. I'm going to duplicate this this layer again. So I'll be right-clicking and go Object Layer Options a couple of times. So I add another cover, and then I duplicate it again. And I keep locking and duplicating and right-clicking and changing the Object Layer Options. This, of course, could be done in several other ways. We're just doing the PSD with the Object Layer Options thing, so I can practice this while you're watching, which is good for me. We'll see if it will be good for you later, when you have to do that 100,000 times. Good days. Okay, so just one more. I use, let's do the last cover. Alrighty. So now, if you take a look, you will see that I have these covers in my iPad sorted neatly, and I want to make a multi-state object out of this. So I'm going to select these layers. And using my Object States panel, I'm going to click this little button here, which is Convert Selection to Multi-State Object. Now you have to have multiple images, multiple objects selected on the stage to do this. When you click it, it will create one object that has these states. State 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the 4 covers that I created. If I have a multiple state object selected, you will see that my selection is changed. It now gives me this blue border. And if I now open my Folio overlays panel, then you will see that this already is recognized as a slideshow element, like that. And I want this slideshow to play automatically when we arrive on this page. And yeah, you see these settings are pretty straightforward, so no big voodoo here. This is going to be looping, so once it gets to the last frame, it will jump back to the first one. I could allow some level of user interaction. So if the user wants to change the image manually, you can swipe to change the image. I could hide this before playing, or I could play this in reverse. But for me, for now, these settings are, yeah, this is pretty much what I was after. And also, please do note that there is a setting here, an option to change between a raster and a vector format in the different states. Now, since now we are doing PNG images, they'll all be rasterized. So using the vector format will not do anything. But if you are using fonts, letters, or if you're using vector art in the different states of this object, then it is well worth switching it to vector, because otherwise your art will be flattened and rasterized to 72 dpi, which is not necessarily, especially on a retina display, the pleasing view that you're after. So far so good. I can preview this again on my desktop to see if I really done it. Let's see if I really done it. Oh yeah, the yellow progress bar. It turns out that I live in a life of progress bars. Even the coffee machine at my workplace has a progress bar on it. I just recently realized. Almost there, we're almost there. Just bear with me. With him, rather said. Yeah. And we're opening the content viewer for the desktop, and it loads, and there you go. Nice changing colors. Okay, was it too fast, too slow? Did you guys get it? Okay. In case you didn't, we can go through this again if you like. Now, let's do this pull-out box here, right? So this is a bit more complex. It is a bit more complicated. But what it is a frame, a standard InDesign frame, that has content inside, which is hanging out of the frame itself. So I'm going to do a quick and dirty version of this. And the quick and dirty version starts, of course, with me placing an empty frame, like this. Okay? And now I'm going to place this little box in it. And you know what? I'm going to run through the generate feature really quickly for you. So I'm switching to my Photoshop. And in Photoshop, I have this layer, which I called download open. I'm just going to make my life much easier by calling this, let's say, draw out. And just to make sure that everything goes as planned, I'm going to save this as, so I will remember where it is, to my desktop. And I'm going to call this, yeah, TSNLed, why not? It's good. Okay. And I'm going to enable the generate feature, which is file, generate, image assets. Okay? As soon as I do that, anything that has an extension on my, like the video button.png, or, for that matter, oh, come on. The drawout.png will be generated by Photoshop into this really convenient folder, which is called tsnl-ed assets, which is your PSD file name /assets, and there is my drawout.png. That was awesome. I really enjoy doing that. So I'm going to drop this, draw out that PNG in my InDesign. And just, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this. And on my desktop, I go to my asset folder, and then I go to my drawout.png, and I open it. And there it is. It's a PNG asset. It will use transparency. I say OK. I just dropped it here. Make it a bit bigger so we can all see it. Alrighty. Now, to create a scrollable frame, there is one rule that is good to keep in mind, and that rule is that actually the frame that accommodates this object when I'm drawing it out needs to be the same width as my original little file here. So as my original frame. So I'm actually creating a frame that is the same size as my PNG frame over there. And I'm going to take this PNG frame, I'm going to cut it, Command X. I'm clicking on the frame that I just created, I'm right clicking, and I say place into. If I paste into, I will be then able to move this like this. And why not paste it in again and just make the bottom half like this. And I'm placing it on top of that. So far so good. And if I'm clicking this this box, I go back to my Folio overlays, and I can make this a scrollable frame. And I can make the scroll direction, for me this is vertical, but I always mess that up. So it's kind of trial and error for me, because not only am I a little bit OCD, but I'm also a little bit dyslexic. So thumbs up. And I want to hide the scroll indicator so the user won't see a scroll bar when he's scrolling that frame. And I want the initial content position to be the document position instead of the upper left. Now, my export format in PDF articles for this is vector by default, which is good, but again, it's not going to do anything really. And let's again test this. So I'm going to preview this on my desktop to see if it's really doing it. This is imperative, because otherwise what will happen is that you're uploading stuff constantly to Adobe servers, and then downloading it onto your iPad, and then it doesn't work. And then you unleash a world of progress bars upon yourself, and that's really not a good idea. So instead, it's always worth taking the time for these little progress bars at the beginning to actually test this content on your desktop first before you are actually pushing this content to anywhere else. And you can see that my pull-up tab works as a charm. So far, so good. Was it clear? Okay, so I'm not going to repeat this either. Now, the great thing about this approach, this pull-up really, is that this can accommodate a multi-state object. So in my case, what I did with this button right there, I'm just going to pull this out. If you check this content, just a bit more, just a bit more. There we are. So this here, as you can see, is a multi-state object. You can see that because when I'm selecting this, it will give me this dashed line. So this multi-state object has actually two states. It has one state where it's just a button, and then it has another state where it is a button and an empty frame that will load of that content. Okay? So let's see let's see this web content, okay? If I, again, double click, I see here, I go to my Folio overlays, and I see that this is actually opening a YouTube video. Now this is a reoccurring question. How do I embed YouTube videos into my digital publications? And this is a fairly straightforward concept, but it's not too well documented. And the trick is that you want to use the embed code of the YouTube video and you want to use HTTP at the beginning. So let's do something like this really quickly, okay? I'm going to come here and I'm going to create a frame. And I want there to be a YouTube video. So for that, I'm going to go to my Folio overlays and I'm going to click web content. Although video sounds, you know, yeah, I want there to be a video. So why am I not choosing video? The thing is that if you choose video, then we assume that you have an MP4 file that is compatible with the iPad and it's playing back on the iPad. So it needs to be an H.264 encoded MP4 video that you are placing in here. Instead, we are going to do a web content. And of course you could do, let's do http www.academyclass.com, right? And I want this to autoplay, and I want this to scale, to fit, and I want to allow user interaction. Now let's see what happens if I do that. Dun, dun, dun. And I think that I am not, you know, it's not going to be too big of a surprise to any of you to see the web page actually appear in that little box. Now this is also pretty good for us because we can create all kinds of different websites and web pages, contact forms and brochures and even a full-fledged web shop if you like. And that will be included in your digital publication. And there you go. And that's the Academy Class website. It is scaled. I'm not saying it's scaled properly, but it is a website that also allows for user interaction. So if I were to click here, it opens a WebKit browser that is part of the content viewer itself, and it opens the website in it. So that's pretty good. But as I said, I want a YouTube video to be played in there. Now let's see. And since I am logged in with my own user, you will see the really disturbing videos that I'm watching on YouTube. But let's check something. From Adobe. Sounds really nice. And if I want this to be inside my digital publication, I need to get the embed code, which is here. And I need this part of the embed code. So not the entire embed code, just this little part, which is the source equals and then tralala and then that. So I'm going to copy that. But this code does not work without the HTTP at the beginning. So I have to add HTTP / and then that URL. And I'm good. And if I am really good, then if I preview this, then I will have a YouTube video appear in that little box over there. So we are combining quite a number of things here. We have a web content that is inside a multi-state object that is inside a scrollable frame. This is, I think, a really complex interactive object in our digital publications. But digital publishing in itself is just one part of the story, because you can And there we have it. Yay! And of course I can go full screen. And Mr. Fleming. Okay. Was that clear? Okay. This is just the first part of the story, because this is just creating the content. So, of course, we also need to deliver this content. And Adobe was kind enough to give us a really nice delivery system in forms of the Folio Builder and the Folio Producer and this whole digital publishing suite. But to show you that, I'm going to go back to my finished project, and I'm going to go to my Folio Builder panel. Now you can see that I am logged in right now. And in the Folio Builder panel, you have this little wing menu that allows you to sign in and out between different Folio Producer accounts. And if you want to create a new folio, then all you have to do is click the Create New Folio button on the right-hand corner of this panel. And I'm just going to recreate this, and I'm going to call this Advert. Let's call 1. And this is a multi-orientation folio, because it does portrait and landscape. My default format will be PDF, and I could upload a vertical and horizontal cover for that now, but I'm not going to bother with this, because I think that you can all guess what the result would be. Saying OK, I will be brought to the folio itself, and now I can start adding articles. Clicking here, I can add the Open InDesign document as an article, or I can import new articles. I'm going to add the Open InDesign document, and I'm going to call this Advert. Save it, why not? Yeah, sure. Dang, dang, dang. And I have created a folio with one article inside. Now if I have an iPad, and I do, but I kind of misplaced my bag. Yeah, it's over there. Yeah, it's good. Inside that bag there is an iPad. Trust me. And I could, using Content Viewer on my iPad, log into the same Adobe ID, log in with the same Adobe ID, and then I would see the contents, then I would see the folios that I uploaded to that ID. And do you want to see that? Is that something that you want to see it in action? Kind of? Okay, then I'll get my iPad. I am not going to mirror my iPad because time is short, and honestly I found that mirroring the iPad screen to be a kind of clunky. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show it like that, so you can kind of trust me and believe me that, oh yeah, it is truly there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start Adobe Content Viewer on my iPad, which is a free application, by the way, so if you want to download it, just go ahead, and it's in the App Store. And I'm going to sign in with my Adobe ID. And of course this only works with an internet connection. So first I need to hook up to the Wi-Fi. Yep. And it's done. And come on. Connect. Yep, there. And Content Viewer. And log in. All right. It's refreshing all the contents, and then I will go ahead and download the one that I think, oh, yeah, it would have been worth adding a cover, because then I would see which one it is. But I will also show you not only the iPad side of this, but the web interface that comes along with this. And that is digitalpublishing.acrobat.com. Or not. It should be. Yay, Wi-Fi. Okay. Then I'm not going to show you that. It's weird. Okay. But changing the Folio properties, I will be able to give a publication name to this. So let's call this TSNL advert, and then it will be easier for me to locate this guy. Hopefully logging in with my iPad didn't break the Wi-Fi here, because that would be yeah, it's right there. It says that momentarily it cannot connect to the server. Yeah, this is the thing that has to happen when I'm doing a presentation. So, okay, you have to trust me on this one. We'll give it a try a bit later, but I also have some other stuff prepared for you, because, as I said, the digital publishing itself and adding interactivity through InDesign using the overlay tools is just one of the ways that we can create digital content with InDesign. The other way, and that's pretty new, so new in fact that even I was only experimenting with this last week, and I thought that it would be nice to show you guys, because I'm kind of bragging. You know, it's like, yeah, I found this, and it's really interesting, and I want to show you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fulfill the dream of those two people who said that they want to have HTML directly from InDesign. And what you're going to see is this layout being HTMLized. And you can see that this is not a too complicated for InDesign users, for people who are using InDesign and were creating layouts with InDesign, this is not too difficult, right? So if you look at it, how fast would you be able to recreate this, like in minutes, right? What does it have? It has 3 images. All of these images have drop shadows as a layer effect. It has 1 background image. It has a shape that has a proper text wrap defined with it. It has text broken into 3 columns with the first paragraph overlapping these columns. And of course I have a text that is rotated, also added a drop shadow to this text, and this text box ignores the text wrap of this shape underneath it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this into something called an EPUB with fixed layout. And this is something we've been experimenting with for quite some time now, but with the with the CC 2014 version of InDesign, you can finally create these really lovely EPUBs, and I'm just going to save this again on my desktop because I know where my desktop is. I'm saving it. I'm leaving all the settings as they are. I'm not changing anything. I'm saying OK to that because that's really nice. And let's see what my result is. It opens up in iBook, and in iBooks I can already see that okay, yeah, it's pretty much what I've been what I designed in InDesign. Text is selectable, and I don't know how much you know about the EPUB, but eventually the EPUB under the hood is HTML. So what I do is I go to my Finder and I rename this. I know, Gary, 5 more minutes or 10?
I could give you 15, you're still not over.
Oh, cool. Thank you then. Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to name this EPUB zip, right? This is a kind of a dirty trick, and I'm going to use the zip as a file format. And if I right-click this, I could open this with my Stuff It expander. If you just try to unzip this, it will give you it won't give you a proper output from the zip file, because this is a tricky zip that has a header inside that is defined as EPUB. So if you were try to unzip this from your standard packet or a packager, then it will give you a ZPG file which won't do anything for you. So you have to use something like Stuff It expander or your choice of compression tool on Windows. And I'm going to create a new folder for this, and I'm going to call this HTML from InDesign, because that's how creative I am. And open it. It brings me here into this folder, and if I open this, you will see this is the stuff that we don't really need, the meta info and the MIME type. What we really need is in this, the OEBPS, bless you, folder. And in here, you will find an XHTML file. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with these type of extensions, XHTML is just standard HTML that has to comply to some rules, so the EPUB readers will actually read this stuff. It's not really important what it is. What we need to know about this is that XHTML is HTML. Thanks, Mark. Is HTML, but with stricter rules. So if I just double-click this, it will open in my Safari, and it is, ladies and gentlemen, a pixel perfect aligned HTML file from InDesign. How cool is that? Still, I have the text that is selectable. There is only one thing, just a little cheat that I inserted in this, and that's with the yay, because the yay has been flattened. It's in InDesign. I told InDesign, for this object, because if I were to export this as text, it will either lose the rotation, either lose the drop shadow, or lose both. And I want to maintain the design as I created. So I want this, and that's in my object export options. I want this to be a PNG file, right? For EPUB and HTML output. Now I'm going to show you your alternative for creating HTML directly from InDesign, and that is File, Export, HTML. Because that would be, you know, your normal choice. Like, I want to save HTML from InDesign, so yeah, I can. It's on the list. I see HTML. Let's do that. And just to make it clean, I do really weird HTML output, and I save that, and it says OK. And it starts with an error. It starts with a warning. It tells me that, yeah, I exported it, but things went wrong. Say OK. It opens, and, well, I don't really know who in his right mind thought that this would be an acceptable HTML output for InDesigners. But since my text was white, then my text is also white in my HTML, and that's really not, this is really not what I was looking for. This is, if I were to compare this to this here, right? This is what I want, and not the other thing that I really truly didn't like. Okay, so that said, I think I still have like 3 minutes. I would like to open for questions if you have any. Yep.
I just wanted to know, is there any way that when you export your app to iPad app,
Mm-hmm.
you don't see the top tool, there is a small tools which
Yeah.
comes with the, is there any way we could get rid of that?
Well, if you're using the app builder, there is an option, a checkbox in the app builder that says, sorry, I'm not going there, because I'm using the Pro. No, I'm actually using the enterprise version of this. So whatever I'm going to show you in this app builder is not really what you want to see, but there is a checkbox that gets rid of that toolbar.
One more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we want to add tracking system to individual pages that are visited by the user from the app, how is it possible?
I don't know about the current proposition of Adobe towards Creative Cloud users of the Folio Builder, but for me, I have an analytics section when I log into this. And let's give it another try. Maybe the servers respond now to me. Oh no, they don't. Bugger. Well, I'll try to set this up, and in the next presentation I'm going to show that too. But eventually, all the Folio Producer applications come with an analytics system already built in. So in our case, for all our publications, we have absolute user data. We can tell how long a user was on a page, what interactive objects he interacted with, and how many pages he read and everything. So that's part of the Adobe Analytics suite. Go ahead and take a look at the Adobe Analytics.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
You mentioned about distribution of folios using the Adobe Content Viewer. Does that enable people to download a file to their iPads?
Yes. If you share these files with them, then yes.
And what format is that in?
It's a .folio file format, which is a kind of a fringe format for Adobe, which is designed specifically for content delivery through this digital publishing suite. And as the content viewer is free, so you can invite your colleagues or your companies to view the content that you create in InDesign.
Is that the only way of distributing those files, or can you send them via email? Say?
Well, I would say that's the only meaningful way of distributing, because you could do this and that and export a .folio in a zip format, and you could send that, but that is a closed format. That's what we call the end of the road. That's where it all stops, and that's not editable anymore. So even if you were to send this file to someone, the best thing that he could do with it is open that folio in his content viewer for the desktop. But he won't be able to edit the content of that folio. So this is the end result, and that you can share, and it's easier to share on the web via the content viewer. Okay. Any more questions? No? No? No multi-state object? How about I make this 3 images a multi-state object? Just by doing... Oh yeah. Oh no, we're out of time. So I'm going to do this. This is just really quickly. It's a really dirty solution. Selecting these. And you go object states. I'm clicking here. And of course I could add a button. And I can make that button change the state. So I'm going to go say buttons and forms. So that's something that we didn't do. I can say this is a button, and on release or tap, it goes to next state on my multi-state object number 1, because he knows that. And if I preview on my desktop, then you will see this multi-state object changing the states when I'm pressing the button. But this was all for people viewing at home when they check the recording. So they have this button right there. Okay, that's cute.
You have, you did scrolling text boxes.
Scrolling text boxes work the same way as we did with this little guy here. So if you, of course, and I would love to show you that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 frames side by side, and eventually they are going to be the same frame. I'm going to copy this. This one, I'm going to fill with with placeholder text. And I'm taking that, pasting it in here. And if I define this as a scrollable frame, I make it vertical, and that's it. Okay? All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah.